The human tragedy undermines the message. Don Elkins died. Carla's health was destroyed. The group that channeled this material about love, light, and unity was itself torn apart by forces. When you incarnate into third density, you forget everything. Who you are, where you came from, what your purpose is, that you are the creator experiencing itself. The forgetting is the entire point, because without it, the choice would be meaningless. Bigfoot gets a complete origin story in the Law of One, and it ties directly into a cosmic narrative about the consequence of nuclear destruction. Whether you find this credible or absurd, you have to admit. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I'm incredibly excited to do a deep dive on the most dangerous channeling experiment in history, the Law of One, which we've covered very extensively on my channel, but we have never covered it in this detail. January 15th, 1981, a quiet house in Louisville, Kentucky. 3 people sit together in a room. A retired physics professor, a woman with a singing voice and a spine full of arthritis, and a man who just moved in 3 weeks ago after hearing them on the radio. They're about to make contact with something that will consume the next 3 years of their lives, something that will produce one of the most philosophically dense, internally consistent, and wildly controversial channeled texts in modern history, something that will leave one of them dead. The voice that came through that day identified itself simply, I am Ra. And over the next 106 sessions, spanning 3 years, 2 months, and thousands of questions, Ra delivered a complete cosmological framework, a system of reality so intricate, so layered, so internally cross-referenced that scholars, physicists, engineers, philosophers, and mystics have spent 4 decades studying it and still discover new connections inside the text. This is the Law of One. And whether you believe it came from a 6-density social memory complex of 6.5 million unified souls, or from the subconscious mind of a gifted trance medium in Kentucky, the material itself demands your attention. Because if even 10% of what Ross said is true about who we are and where we came from, why we forget, and what happens next, then everything changes. Everything. To understand the Law of One, you first have to understand the 3 human beings who made it possible, because their story lives and dies in the most concrete physical sense with their harmony. Donald T. Elkins was a professor of mechanical engineering and physics at the University of Louisville. He was also, by every account, one of the most brilliant and eccentric researchers of the paranormal that America ever produced. Don had been investigating UFOs, reincarnation, out-of-body experiences, and the nature of consciousness since the late 1950s. While his colleagues were publishing papers on thermodynamics, Don was quietly compiling one of the most comprehensive bodies of UFO research in the country. In 1962, Don received a small brown notebook from a man named Walt Rogers out of Detroit. Rogers claimed to have had a face-to-face encounter with a UFO entity and had developed ongoing telepathic contact with a being called Hatan. The notebook described a process. If a group of people meditated together regularly, they could receive similar telepathic transmissions. Don, being Don, decided to test this scientifically. He gathered 12 of his physics students, told them only that something interesting might happen, and asked them to meditate together. He said 0 about extraterrestrials. He said 0 about channeling. He wanted a clean experiment. Months passed. The experiment seemed to produce nothing. Then Walt Rogers visited the group, channeled Hatan live, and Hatan revealed that the entity had been trying to communicate through several of Don's students, but the students had been dismissing the impressions as their own thoughts. Don was frustrated. The scientific validity of the experiment was compromised, but the channeling itself had begun. Enter Carla L. Rueckert. Carla was a cradle Episcopalian, a mystical Christian, a woman of towering intellect and bottomless faith. She first showed up at one of Don's channeling sessions because a friend's boyfriend was in the group and she loved meditation. She was the only person in the room who never learned to channel during those early experiments. She preferred silence. But by 1968, Carla and Don had joined forces professionally, forming what would become LL Research, and in 1974, Don asked Carla to begin channeling herself. She was extraordinary at it. Carla brought something to the channeling process that elevated everything: a purity of intention, a fearlessness of spirit, and a set of refined protocols that included tuning the group's energy and challenging any entity that came through to prove its alignment with the highest principles of love and service. These protocols would become essential to what happened next. Then there was Jim McCarty. In 1978, Jim was living off the grid in a log cabin he'd built himself on 132 acres of woodland in central Kentucky. One evening, he heard Don and Carla on a local radio broadcast discussing UFOs. Something in that interview pulled at him. A year later, through a chain of mutual contacts, he met them. He drove to Louisville every Sunday night for a year to attend their meditation sessions. Then, in December 1980, Don and Carla invited him to move in and join their research full-time. Jim arrived on December 23, 1980. 23 days later, Ra showed up. The first contact was an accident, or at least appeared to be. Carla was in the living room teaching a newer student how to channel, a routine training session. Don was observing Jim was out grocery shopping. During the session, Carla suddenly went into a deep trance state that she had never entered before. Her conscious channeling, where she remained aware and could hear the words coming through, vanished completely. She left her body, and a voice spoke through her vocal cords that no one in the room had ever heard before. "I am Ra. I have spoken through this instrument before." We had to wait until she was precisely tuned as we send a narrowband vibration. "We greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator." From that moment forward, every session with Ra followed the same protocol. Carla would slip into complete unconsciousness. She would leave her physical body entirely. Ra would then operate her vocal cords remotely, mechanically, as they described it, to respond to Don's questions. Ra described their control over Carla's body as the grossest level of manipulation. They could move her mouth, they could barely reposition her hands. Jim's role was equally vital. During every session, he sat in meditation, continuously visualizing white light moving through Carla's energy centers, from the crown of her head to the soles of her feet. He was the battery, the energetic anchor. Without his focused intention, the contact degraded. Don was the questioner, and what made Don so remarkable in this role was his decades of prior research. He already had a comprehensive model of reality pieced together from years of investigating the paranormal. Ra confirmed and expanded upon concepts Don had been circling for 20 years. The questions he asked were precise, layered, and deeply informed. Over 3 years, he asked Ra more than 2,600 questions. Ra insisted on the question and answer format. They refused to lecture. They refused to impose information. The reason? Free will. Ra would only respond to what was asked, never volunteering information unbidden. They said the question and answer format preserved the free will of the seekers by allowing them to direct their own inquiry. And the material that emerged from those 106 sessions, it is staggering. Ra described a universe that is at its foundation a single thought, one consciousness, one infinite intelligence that chose to know itself, and in doing so created everything that exists. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love, light, light, love. You are. This is the law of one. According to Ra, the one infinite creator generated all of existence from its own being. Galaxies, stars, planets, beings like us, for a single purpose, to know itself through experience. And it gave every fragment of itself one absolutely inviolable gift: free will. The system of evolution that Ra described moves through what they call densities, 7 major concentrations of consciousness within each octave of experience. Think of it like a musical scale, 7 notes, each building upon the last, before the octave repeats at a higher level. First density is the elements: fire, wind, water, earth, the raw building blocks of physical reality. Awareness in its most primal form. In first density, the elements learn to combine, to create the conditions for biological life. Second density, growth and movement. plants and animals, bacteria and trees and wolves and whales. In second density, consciousness learns directed growth, movement toward light, and eventually begins to develop the first stirrings of self-awareness. Your dog looking at you with recognition in its eyes? That's a second density being reaching toward the threshold of third density. Third density, the density of choice. This is where we are. This is where it gets interesting. Third density is unique in the entire system because of one feature, the veil of forgetting. When you incarnate into third density, you forget everything. Who you are, where you came from, what your purpose is, that you are the creator experiencing itself. The forgetting is the entire point, because without it, the choice would be meaningless. And the choice is this: how will you orient your consciousness? Towards service to others, seeing the creator in all beings, loving without condition, serving the whole, or towards service to self, consolidating power, controlling others, serving the separate self above all else. Ra said both paths are valid. Both lead eventually back to the creator, but they take very, very different routes to get there. According to Ra, to graduate from third density on the positive path, you need to be at least 51% oriented towards service to others. To graduate on the negative path, the threshold is much higher, 95% service to self. The negative path is harder, steeper, and ultimately runs into a dead end in sixth density, where the entity must finally turn toward love in order to continue evolving. But it is a real path, and there are real beings walking it. Fourth density is love and understanding. Here, thoughts become visible, love becomes tangible. Beings can read each other's minds and hearts. The social memory complex forms, the entire planetary population unified into a single shared consciousness where every individual's memories, experiences, and understanding become available to all. Separation dissolves. This is what Ra is, a sixth density social memory complex of approximately 6.5 million souls. Then there's fifth density, which is wisdom and light. Having mastered love, the being now turns to wisdom. The balance between compassion and discernment becomes the central lesson. Fifth density is sometimes called the density of light because wisdom illuminates what love alone cannot see. Then we move to sixth density, which is unity. Love and wisdom merge. The being becomes a conduit of true power, the balanced integration of an open heart and a clarified mind. Ra exists here. And from sixth density, Ra can reach back through the densities to offer their perspectives to beings like us. Seventh density is the gateway. Ra described this as the density of foreverness. The entity moves into complete harmony with the one creator, preparing for the final dissolution back into intelligent infinity. The eighth density is both at the end of the octave and the beginning of the next, the first density of a new cycle, spiraling infinitely outward and inward at the same time. This is the architecture Ra described, a universe that is one being, dreaming itself into infinite fragments, each fragment on a journey back to remembering what it always was. One of the most profound concepts in the entire Law of One material is the veil of forgetting and its purpose. Ra described a time before the veil existed. In that earlier configuration of third density, mind, body, spirits incarnated with full knowledge of who they are, where they came from, and what the Creator was. They could see each other's thoughts. They understood the unity of all things. And here's the problem. Almost nobody made any progress. Without forgetting, the choice between service to others and service to self was meaningless. If you can see that every being is the Creator, serving others is obvious. There is no courage required. There's no faith tested. There's no catalyst for growth. Entities would live incarnation after incarnation in a pleasant haze of known unity, never deepening, never polarizing, never truly choosing. So the veil was introduced, a radical design change in the experiment of consciousness evolution. Third density beings would incarnate into total amnesia. They would forget everything, and in that darkness, that complete unknowing, their choices would finally mean something. The veil made faith necessary. It made seeking possible. It made love, real love offered without guarantee of reciprocity, without proof of cosmic purpose, the most powerful act in the universe. Because love offered in the dark, love given without certainty, love extended toward a stranger who might be a creator or might be a threat. That love transforms the being who offers it in a way that a million lifetimes of comfortable knowing never could. Ra said, that the veil was the single most important innovation of the entire system of density evolution. Before it, third density took much longer and produced far less growth. After it, the pace of evolution accelerated dramatically, and so did the suffering. This is the trade-off. This is the deal we made before we were ever born. We chose to forget so that our choices could carry weight, and the weight of those choices is exactly what makes third density so painful, so beautiful, and so valuable. One of the most startling historical claims in the raw material involves the planet Maldek, which contradicts a little bit from my previous episodes about Zecharia Sitchin, a world that once existed in our solar system between Mars and Jupiter, roughly where the asteroid belt is now. According to Ra, Maldek was a third density planet whose inhabitants destroyed their world through nuclear war approximately 705,000 years ago. The destruction was so complete that the planet itself shattered. But the trauma went deeper than the physical. The souls who had incarnated on Maldek were so devastated, so psychologically damaged by the collective suicide of their world, that they became knotted together in what Ra called a social complex knot of fear. They were frozen, paralyzed, unable to move forward, unable to reincarnate, unable to process what had happened. For approximately 100,000 years, and you may be one of these souls, the Confederation tried to reach these souls. Finally, they were untangled. But the karmic debt was immense. These entities were placed into second density bodies on Earth, bodies without the capacity for higher mental function, without the dexterity and self-awareness of true third density forms. They needed to work through their karma in a reduced state before they could re-enter the third density experience. Ra identified these beings as what we call Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the large, elusive, humanoid creatures reported across the world. Ra said that these are the souls of Maldek, still working through the consequences of their civilization's self-destruction, dwelling in deep underground passages and dense forests, gradually resolving the trauma that shattered their world. Take that in for a moment. One of the most persistent unexplained phenomenon in the world. Bigfoot gets a complete origin story in the Law of One, and it ties directly into a cosmic narrative about the consequence of nuclear destruction. Whether you find this credible or absurd, you have to admit, it's a breathtaking claim. According to Ra, Earth has been in third density for approximately 75,000 years, 3 major cycles of 25,000 years each. And at the end of each master cycle comes what Ra calls a harvest. A harvest is exactly what it sounds like. The planetary population is assessed. Those who have achieved sufficient polarization, either towards service to others or service to self, graduate to fourth density. Those who have failed to make the choice repeat the cycle somewhere else. The first harvest came at the 25,000 year mark. Nobody graduated. The second came at the 50,000 year mark. Again, nobody. The vibration of this planet was too confused, too muddled, too caught between polarities for anyone to cross the threshold. The third harvest, the final one, that's happening now. And Ra was very clear, this planet's population has a serious problem. The level of confusion, the depth of the forgetting, the intensity of the mixed polarity, it's extreme here. More extreme than most third density planets. Earth is, in Ra's framing, a particularly difficult classroom. So what do you do when a classroom is struggling? You send volunteers. Ra described beings they called wanderers, entities from fourth density, fifth density, and sixth density, who chose to incarnate into third density bodies on Earth specifically to help raise the planetary vibration. These beings agree to take on the veil of forgetting, just like everyone else. They forget who they are. They forget where they came from. They stumble through human life with a persistent aching feeling that something about this place is wrong, that they are from somewhere else, that there is a mission that can almost remember but can never quite name. Ra estimated that at the time of the contact, 1981, there were approximately 65 million wanderers incarnate on Earth. Given population growth and the acceleration of the harvest cycle, that number today is likely much higher. The risk for wanderers is real. If a wanderer became so lost in the forgetting that they adopt a strongly negative orientation, they can become karmically trapped in the third density cycle. Instead of returning to their home density after death, they repeat the wheel. The very beings who came to help can become the ones who need rescuing. Ra also described the members of their own group, including Don, Carla, and Jim themselves, as wanderers. 2 from the 5th density and 1 from 6th, though Ra declined to say who was from which to preserve free will. Ra said they had walked the earth before. Approximately 11,000 years ago, Ra came to 2 civilizations, the Egyptians and a group in South America. They came in physical form. They walked among humans as brothers and sisters, explicitly as equals, never as gods. Their intention was to teach the law of one directly face to face. It failed. The Egyptian elite co-opted the teachings, stripped them of their compassion, and used the technology Ra shared, including the construction of the Great Pyramid at Giza, for their own power. The social hierarchy destroyed everything. The message of unity was twisted into a tool of control. Ra described the Great Pyramid as a healing instrument, a structure designed to channel cosmic energy through specific geometric ratios for the purpose of healing the mind, body, and spirit. The pyramid shape itself concentrates intelligent energy in ways that align with the planet's energy grid. The king's chamber was the initiation space where a seeker would lie in the sarcophagus and undergo what Ra called a confrontation with self, meeting the full truth of their being unfiltered. But the priests kept this technology for themselves. The people never received the Law of One in its pure form, and Ra, realizing that their direct intervention had caused more distortion than clarity, withdrew. They tried again during the 18th dynasty through the pharaoh Akhenaten, who Ra described as a wanderer. Akhenaten received Ra's transmission and attempted to institute monotheism, the worship of the Aten, the sun disk. It was a close approximation of the Law of One, but it lasted only 1 generation. After Akhenaten died, the priesthood reverted to polytheism and buried the message entirely. This pattern of pure information entering the world and being immediately distorted by those in power is one of the great recurring themes in the Law of One material. Ra took responsibility for it. They said their naivete in approaching Earth directly was a mistake, and that they had been working from a distance ever since to correct the distortions they originally introduced. Ra described a force in direct opposition to the Confederation of Planets, an organization called the Orion Group. While the Confederation serves the positive polarity in the Law of One, the Orion Group serves the negative polarity, service to self, hierarchy, domination, and control. The Orion Group operates across multiple densities, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and a few entities in 6th. Their method is consistent. They target individuals and civilizations, amplify fear and separation, and attempt to recruit souls toward the negative polarity. Their tools include thought form projections, dream infiltration, psychic greeting, and the manipulation of those already inclined towards service to self. Ra was careful to point out that the Orion Group is bound by the same cosmic laws as everyone else. They cannot violate free will. They can only offer temptation. They can only amplify what is already present. If a being has unresolved fear, pride, anger, or desire for control, the Orion Group can find that crack and widen it. But they can only enter through a door that is already open. The Orion Group was particularly interested in the Ra contact because the contact was producing such high-quality positive information, it became a target. The way universal law works, according to Ra, is that any intensely positively working automatically generates an equal opportunity for the negative to interfere. Balance must be maintained. Light draws darkness. This is the fundamental principle Ra called the honor duty of the negative polarity, and the negative 5th density entity that attached itself to this particular group would ultimately play a role in the destruction of everything. From the very first session, Ra warned about the danger to Carla. Every time she left her body for the trance state, she was vulnerable. Ra described her physical vehicle as weakened by lifelong arthritic conditions, and her vital energy reserves were always perilously low. The group developed elaborate protective rituals, the Circle of One, the placement of sacred objects, Jim's continuous visualization, all to create a safe space for the contact. But as the sessions continued, the psychic attacks intensified. Ra described a 5th density negative entity, a being of considerable power and sophistication that had attached itself to the group. This entity could amplify any pre-existing distortion within any member of the group. Physical ailments, emotional vulnerabilities, mental patterns, anything already present became a vector for attack. For Carla, the attacks targeted her physical body. Her arthritis flared, kidney problems emerged. Her weight dropped dangerously Each session cost her physically in ways that accumulated over time. In my interview with Jim McCarty, he said that she would lose massive amounts of weight and she would be very tired. For Jim, the attacks manifested as kidney failure and physical crisis. The entity exploring his tendency toward extreme self-discipline and self-purification. At one point, Jim's determination to cleanse himself spiritually translated so intensely into the physical that his kidneys began to fail as his body attempted to purge every impurity simultaneously. But it was Don who bore the heaviest burden. Don Elkins was a man of immense wisdom, extraordinary intellect, and profound emotional reserve. He was the observer, the questioner, the one who watched and analyzed while others felt. He had built concrete walls around his heart, walls that served him well in his role as an objective researcher of the paranormal. Sometime in the final year of the contact, something shifted between Don and Carla. According to both Jim and Carla's later accounts, Carla offered to take on Don's worries, his anxieties about his airline job, his health, the continuation of their work, and allow him to experience her more carefree state. Don innocently agreed. What happened next was devastating. The bond between Don and Carla was apparently so deep, so unified at the metaphysical level that this simple verbal agreement triggered a genuine energy transfer. Don received the full force of Carla's open-hearted emotional sensitivity, a sensitivity she had spent a lifetime learning to manage, and Carla received Don's controlled analytical detachment. Don's concrete walls came down, all of them, at once. He began to feel everything. He could no longer watch television, even comedies, because the suffering was too much to hear. He, the lifelong observer, was suddenly experiencing the full emotional spectrum without any of the coping mechanisms that a lifetime of emotional openness teaches a person. His mental state deteriorated. He stopped eating. He stopped sleeping normally. He became convinced that dark forces were closing in on the group. The fifth density negative entity found its target of opportunity and drove the wedge deeper and deeper. On November 7th, 1984, Donald Elkins took his own life. He was 53 years old. The raw contact died with him. Jim McCarty and Carla Rueckert continued their work together for 28 years after Don's death. They married and carried on LL research until Carla's passing in 2015. Jim continues the work to this day. The 106 sessions of the raw contact have been published, retranscribed from the original audio tapes, cross-referenced, indexed, and made freely available to the world. The material endures, but the human cost of producing it was extraordinary. So here we are. A channeled text that claims to be from a six-density social memory complex of 6.5 million unified souls transmitted through the mechanically operated vocal cords of an unconscious woman in Kentucky in the early 1980s. Let's address the obvious. The first argument is that it's all Carla's subconscious. The most common skeptical position is that the raw material was produced by Carla Rueckert's unconscious mind, that she was an extraordinarily gifted trance medium who had accessed deep layers of her own psyche, synthesized information from decades of spiritual reading, and produced material of remarkable consistency, all without conscious awareness. This was a serious argument, and it deserves serious consideration. Carla was deeply educated in mystical Christianity, Eastern philosophy, and esoteric traditions. She had years of channeling experience before Ra ever appeared. The subconscious mind is a powerful synthesizer of information, capable of producing content that the conscious mind would be unable to replicate. The counter-argument from within the Law of One community is consistency across 106 sessions, spanning 3 years. Ra uses specific, highly technical terminology with absolute precision throughout. Terms like mind-body-spirit complex, distortion, space-time, time-space are used with consistent definitions that never waver, never contradict, and build upon each other in ways that create an internally closed logical system. The vocabulary is alien, and deliberately so. Ra chose words specifically to avoid the emotional and cultural baggage of existing spiritual language. Could a single human subconscious maintain that level of terminological precision across 106 sessions while unconscious? It would be extraordinary. Possible, perhaps, but extraordinary. The second argument, it's cold reading in reverse. Some skeptics have argued that Don Elkins was leading the witness, that his questions contained the answers he wanted, and Ra simply reflected them back in a more elaborate language. In this view, the contact was a feedback loop between Don's expectations and Carla's subconscious compliance. This argument has real teeth. For certain portions of the material, Don clearly brought a framework to the conversation. He had studied UFOs, reincarnation, and channeled material for decades. His questions often contain embedded assumptions. However, Ra frequently corrected Don. Ra regularly told Don that his questions contained distortions, misunderstandings, or false premises. Ra would decline to answer certain questions on free will grounds. Ra would say things that contradicted Don's assumptions entirely. These corrections were frequent and specific, and they are difficult to explain if the material was simply reflecting Don's own belief back to him. The third argument is unfalsifiability. Perhaps the strongest skeptical critique of the Law of One is it is unfalsifiable. You cannot test whether densities exist. You cannot measure a social memory complex. You cannot verify the existence of the Orion Group, the Harvest, or Wanderers through any empirical method currently available. This is true, and it's a legitimate philosophical problem, but Ra addressed this directly. They explicitly stated that they had zero desire to provide proof. They did zero miracles. They offered zero predictions with specific dates. They said that faith and seeking were the mechanisms of spiritual growth, that providing proof would violate free will by removing the necessity by choice. The veil of forgetting exists precisely because the choice must be made in the dark. Providing evidence would short-circuit the very system they were describing. Whether you find this satisfying or circular depends entirely on your epistemological starting point. If you require empirical falsifiability for any truth claim, the Law of One fails that test. If you accept that certain domains of reality may lie permanently beyond empirical measurement, the Law of One's internal consistency becomes the relevant metric, and on that measure, it's remarkably strong. The fourth argument, the human tragedy, undermines the message. Don Elkins died. Carla's health was destroyed. The group that channeled this material about love, light, and unity was itself torn apart by forces, whether metaphysical or psychological, that the material claimed to describe. Some critics argue that this outcome disproves the material's validity. If Ra was real, and if the Confederation was truly watching over this group, why did they allow Don to die? Why did they permit the psychic attacks to succeed? The counter-argument, again, from within the framework, is that Ra addressed this explicitly and repeatedly. Free will is inviolable. Even the Confederation cannot override the free choices of incarnate beings. Don's choices, Carla's choices, the dynamics between them, these were free will expressions that no positive entity could interfere with, regardless of the consequences. The fifth density negative entity operated within the same rules. It could only amplify distortions that were already present. It could only enter doors already ajar. This explanation is internally consistent, but internal consistency and external truth are different things. The fifth argument, the channeling genre itself. The Law of One exists within a genre, channeled spiritual communication, that has produced an enormous amount of material of wildly varying quality. For every raw contact, there are thousands of channels claiming to receive messages from ascended masters, Pleiadians, archangels, and interdimensional councils, many of which contain vague platitudes, veiled predictions, and internal contradictions. The Law of One supporters argue, correctly in my view, that guilt by association is a poor analytical framework. The fact that most channeled material is low quality does absolutely zero to determine whether one specific body of work is valuable. You evaluate the material on its own merits. And on its own merits, the raw material stands apart from virtually everything else in the genre. Even Ra acknowledged this. They described most channeling as broadband communication, wider, easier to access, and more susceptible to distortion. Their own contact was narrow band, requiring precise conditions, enormous discipline, and significant personal risk. They were aware of the noise in the field, and they explicitly asked seekers to evaluate their words critically, to take only what resonated, and to discard the rest. So why, after 45 years, does the Law of One still matter? Because there's something in this material that defies easy dismissal. It stays with me. It has stayed with me since I accessed it. The density system maps onto observable patterns of consciousness development in ways that are uncanny. The description of the veil of forgetting aligns with every mystical tradition's account of incarnation as a process of deliberate amnesia. The polarity model, service to others versus service to self, provides a framework for understanding human behavior, that is more elegant and more comprehensive than most psychological models. The concept of the harvest resonates with the widespread intuition shared across cultures and centuries that humanity is approaching a threshold, that something is shifting, that the old world is ending and a new one is being born. And the idea that you are already, always, and inevitably the one infinite creator experiencing itself through the illusion of separation, that is the foundational insight of every awakening tradition on Earth. Raj has said it differently, more precisely, more technically, with more internal rigor than perhaps anyone before or since. There is decades of research around the Law of One's framework. The philosopher Scott Maldek has written extensively about wanderers. Study groups exist on every continent. The free online resource lawofone.info, built by Toby Wheelock, who spent years re-listening to every original audio tape, has made the material searchable, cross-referenced, and accessible to anyone with any internet connection. And quietly, persistently, people are discovering it. They keep discovering it. They stumble across a reference, they read a passage, something inside them recognizes something, they fall down the rabbit hole. Because the Law of One does something that very few spiritual texts accomplish. It makes you think harder, question deeper, and examine yourself more honestly the more you engage with it. It rewards study. It reveals new layers. It challenges assumptions. 4 decades in, people are still finding connections they had never seen before. And perhaps most importantly, the material provides something that the modern spiritual landscape desperately needs, a framework that honors both the mystical and the intellectual. Ra spoke with the precision of a physicist and the depth of a contemplative monk. They honored questions, they respected doubt, they never demanded belief. Their entire approach was, here's our perspective, take what serves you, leave the rest. We are humble messengers. The message matters more than the messenger. The world is drowning in channeled material that demands faith, reflects catastrophe, and requires the surrender of critical thinking. The Law of One stands as something else entirely. It invites you in. It asks you to bring your sharpest mind and your most open heart, and it suggests gently, persistently, without coercion, that the universe is far more beautiful, far more purposeful, and far more unified than anything your forgetting allows you to see. 3 people in a room in Louisville, Kentucky. A physics professor, a mystic, and a man from the woods. They sat down together, opened a channel, and received a transmission that would outlive all of them. The voice that spoke through Carla Rueckert said it was from the 6th density. It said it had walked the earth 11,000 years ago and helped build the pyramids. It said it was one of the 6.5 million souls unified into a single complex of consciousness. And they said the universe is made of one thing, and that thing is you. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's the most elaborate and internally consistent work of unconscious creative synthesis in the history of trans-channeling. Maybe it's both. But here's what I know for certain. Don Elkins gave everything for this material. Carla Rueckert gave her body. Jim McCarty gave his life's work. Whatever the source of these words, the sacrifice of the people who brought them forward was real, total, and irreversible. And the core message, that you are the creator, that the love is the nature of reality, that every being you have ever met is another version of yourself looking back at you through different eyes. That message deserves your honest consideration. Ross said it best in the very first session. You are everything, every being, every emotion, every event, every situation. You are unity. You are infinity. You are love, light, love. You are. This is the Law of One. Before you go, I want to invite you to join the Reality Revolution tribe. The link's in the description. In our group, we have weekly group coaching sessions. You can find exclusive content with audiobooks and meditations you can find nowhere else. We have networking sessions and masterminds, and it's an amazing group of people working together to manifest your dreams and goals. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com, where you can find updates about our most recent events. You can purchase tickets there as well. You can find meditations there as well. I'd love it if you checked out my art. You can find it at www.newearth.art. And as always, welcome to The Reality Revolution. I am Brian Scott, and I want to invite you to 3 days, 9 sessions, 1 amazing timeline shift. I am bringing the full Reality Revolution experience back to Southern California. Activate the pineal gland, meet your higher self, quantum jump into your greatest timeline, Open the bliss body. Flow with large sums of money. Open to love. Shift into the new earth. Special appearance from Daryl Lanka. Friday night celebration, weekend transformation, one weekend, one lifetime of change, July 24th through the 26th. The Hilton Anaheim. You can find it at www.brianscottlive.com/Anaheim.